Sue, welcome.
Thank you.
This has been a long time talking about as to all part of our strategy of how we can help our adult returners learn better, quicker, less stressful. And it's great that Julie, you're here because you are our ideal person that we want to help along the way to ensure that you are getting the most out of your training, but also you learn how to learn again, because it really is, I think, quite stressful thinking about all of the things that you need to be thinking about with changing your career, learning the new stuff, but also then balancing your life as well. And some people are much better at it than others. So Sue joined our team recently, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Sue, as to why you are an authority and why you have the right to wear the mentorship cap.
So my background is nursing. I had a very long career in nursing, and after 30 years of nursing, I swapped into teaching health and social care. And within that, I was teaching 16 to 18-year-olds. But I was also teaching adults on the Access course. So they are, like us, retraining to do something else. And then I decided that I really wanted to go into something else. And I looked back at nursing. It didn't suit me to go back into nursing. So I really had an interest in reflexology and other complementary therapies. So I have recently gone back into study again, completed my course. So I have been where you are and have done the Indian head massage, the reflexology. I've done some CPD courses. So I've got a background in healthcare, retraining into teaching, and then retraining into complementary therapies. So I do understand the pressures of what you're doing at the moment.
So that just shows you it can be done. And we have trained hundreds of people, and they would not still be in running their businesses if it wasn't possible. But everybody's journey through that process is different. And what we want to try and do as much as possible is make it easier for you. So the purpose of this recording is firstly to give you some tools and techniques to help you go back to studying, to organize yourself, but also looking at how you actually go about creating the evidence that you need for the new SEG awards, because it is slightly different from the City and Guilds requirements. So that's what we wanted to do. Okay. So I can see Charlotte is lurking in the background there. Hi, Charlotte. Julie or Charlotte, have you got any questions that you are interested in getting answered now, or are you just happy to sit and listen and chip in at the end?
Yeah, I'm happy to just sit and listen, and then if there's anything at the end, I'll ask you if that's right.
Great. Okay. The only thing I would ask is if you've got anything going on in your background, if you could turn your microphone off, just in case there's any children or music or anything.
No.
Okay, so where should we start?
Well, I kind of made some notes on this, trying to think about the whole process. And my first thought was, remember why you're doing this, because it's so easy to start, get all enthusiastic at the start, and then get lost in it all as you start building your way through everything. You've got case studies, you've got work, you've got all sorts of things. So I think the most important thing is to always have a reason why you're doing it, and that will help you to really try and get through it. So I would then suggest that you look at your week. When is it that you are able to study? And that's the biggest thing. It is identifying some time. When have you actually got time that you can sit down, where you're not going to be disturbed, where nobody's going to ask you to do anything, where you haven't got case studies, we haven't got anything else to do? How are you going to do it? Do you need to ask for help? Do you need somebody to take the dog out, take the children out, cook the dinner? What else is it that you need to get off of the table so that something else can come into it? And then where are you going to do that? And that's always the hardest one. If you haven't got a room or a space in your house, Is there somewhere else that you could go? Could you go to the library? Have you got a friend's house, your mum and dad's house, somewhere that you could go if you haven't got somewhere at home? And that's, once you've got those things sorted, it kind of starts to make it easier to leave things in one place, so that it's not such an effort to get everything out and have to study all of the time. So I would suggest that you try to plan then a time, whether it's every Sunday afternoon, every Monday evening, whenever it is that you've got time to do that, and you can leave all your notes in one place or in a bag ready to go, so that you've got everything in one place. And then work out what is going to work best for you, but don't worry if something goes wrong, because it does. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Something will happen during that week. One of the children's not well, you're not well, work throws a spanner in the works, something happens and you have to reschedule it, but don't beat yourself up over it. Just get back on track again. So the other thing to think about when you're doing the work is, think that the assessor, so that's any of us that are marking your work, knows absolutely nothing. Treat us as if we know nothing. And when you're writing that assignment, write it as if you're telling us from absolute scratch, step by step, every single thing that you can think you need to put in there, so that you're only having to write it once. Because you've got to write them, so it's better to do it once and do it right, rather than getting it back, having to do it again, because that's when it gets miserable, is when you've done it once, you get it back, it's still not right, you get it back again. You get so fed up with it, you don't want to look at it anymore. And also, if it takes time, you've forgotten why you were doing it in the first place and what it was you were talking about. Okay. So things that we've picked up that we're looking at with the marking, isn't it? I think is things like, make sure that you label the task. Which task is it that you're doing? Write the criteria at the top. And always have that criteria in mind when you're actually answering the question. And then I always use several different sources, so that I've got all of the information there. So before I actually go to write my answer, I would have the therapy learning resources. Maybe I've read what's on the therapy learning resources. I always go back to that. I would have my textbook as another source. And then I would have a reliable website. So a reliable website is definitely not Wikipedia or something that you've just read on Google. Google is the search engine. You need to go into a reliable website and find the information on there. Things like the NHS are really good when we're talking about complementary therapies. The Association of Reflexologists I really liked. There's a whole bank of websites that you can use that will give you really good information about that. And then make a plan. Go back to basics. Have an outline plan of exactly what it is that you want to actually put into that assignment, so that you've got the information, you've read it, you've made a plan, you've got everything that you need. And then I always walk away. I don't know if you do, Louise. I always walk away for a little bit once I've written it, and then I come back to it. And my husband thinks I've gone mad sometimes because he can hear me talking to myself, but I'll quite often read it out loud and check it again against the criteria. Have I done what I set out to do? Have I actually answered the criteria? And have I got everything in there that I think I should get in there? Because it's difficult. I find it very difficult to read things on the computer sometimes. So I sometimes even print it off and have a look at it, because I find that easier. And I think the other thing that we've really noticed is about the command words.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this, and you said that the command words, there's a whole section on the TLR about command words.
There is. In the overview course, the SEG Reflexology Level 3, where it talks about all the different components, it talks about assessments and assignments, and it also has the command verbs. After we spoke the other day, Sue, I actually moved that into the Principles and Practices course as well. Right. So it's in there on both times, and I will also add it into, I haven't done yet, but I will also add it into the Anatomy and Physiology and the business module as well, because I think it's very easy when you've got a a question that says describe or explain or state, to think how much information do I need to put in there, and what actually do they want. And we have noticed that some of the answers have come back in bullet point form, so that's fine as a state or list, but actually that tends to be a level 2 level of completing the work, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So if it says identify, you can identify the points, but it would be nice to have an explanation, just a couple of sentences at the start. I will be identifying these points because, just to give some example as to why you're doing that, and then identify the points. And I think what we're trying to do is avoid that referral work, so you don't get it back again. So check the criteria, and if it says evaluate wants you to pull something apart, really look at it, describe what it is, what does it do, why do we do something, and I think that's the most key point in all of this, is work out and even underline what your key command verb is when you're looking at things as well.
One of the things we don't know yet is how pedantic the moderator will be. So we have to be as pernickety as we absolutely need to be. And Sue is used to working with BTEC who were, you know, really sticklers. One of the things that I think that we can do is we can give you a lot of feedback as to why the work isn't as it should be, what's missing. Whereas, you know, with other rewarding organisations, you can't. You just say it's not good enough. Do it again. I don't think that's the case. So until we've been through our first moderation, we probably will be a little bit picky, because the last thing that we want is an external moderator that says, no, sorry, doesn't meet the criteria. Not going to put ourselves in that position, or you either.
And I think that's a really good thing about this awarding body at the moment, because as you say, in the past I've not been able to give feedback. All I've been able to say is please go back to the criteria, which isn't actually very helpful. So what we're looking at the moment now is trying to give you really positive points. Go back and answer this point, I think is what we're trying to do with that. And I would say check SPAG, spelling, punctuation and grammar, because it is important, and sometimes if it's not correct, it does actually change the meaning of things. So I would say make sure that you've checked that, make sure that you've looked at the spelling of things, that you have looked at how the words are, how you've structured a sentence, because it can change the meaning.
And artificial intelligence is absolutely amazing for doing this, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with you using Grammarly, which is a free extension to Google Chrome, or I think Safari, but definitely Google Chrome, or get somebody else to read it for you is another one, because I think we always read what we want to read, what we think we're saying, and somebody else can read it and say, what does this mean? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And you look at it again and kind of go, no, it doesn't, does it? So your spelling, punctuation, I mean, there's one thing that is an absolute cardinal sin, is to spell complementary with an I. So that is a cardinal sin, and the other one is professional. So if you get nothing else right, those two things need to get right.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And if you're relying on spell check, you might have it set to American spelling as well, which does make a difference when you're spell checking things and the grammar. I think one of the other things that we've picked up recently is about the ID numbers and about putting a name on there. I think it's about making sure you've got the right criteria, your name and the right reference number, candidate number.
So the identification numbers, they're called with SEG, actually I wasn't aware that they don't tell me when they've registered them. They're just available on the platform. So I went looking today and I found them all. So the newest group will all get their ID numbers shortly, but we can always put them on over the top. But once you've got the ID number, and if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but please make sure you put your name on it at least, because I know that you think you're uploading it to the TLR, or you are emailing it to Michelle or myself or whatever. But when we've just got that in a folder somewhere, or if it's printed off in your portfolio and it hasn't got your name on it. It could be anybody's. So it is important that you put your name on it.
Definitely. And if you have quoted anything or you've used any references, make sure that that reference list is there so that we can tell that you are acknowledging that work. There is the plagiarism explanation is on the TLR. I know it's definitely there, but it's just double checking that. It's okay to paraphrase things, but if you're directly quoting, then you must reference. And if it's not clear to us, then we will put it through a plagiarism checker, and it comes up very quickly that we can tell whether or not it is your own work. So just acknowledge that if it is somebody else's work.
If you do a copy and paste from a website, quite often the work will be with a background colour. Now that might not be very noticeable to you, but it sticks out like a sore thumb for somebody that's actually looking for plagiarism. So you have to watch that as well, because sometimes it's a bit of a telltale sign. Yeah.
Or the font is slightly different. You can pick it up very quickly.
Telltale signs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely fine to use AI. It's absolutely fine to use it to generate ideas. Or if you're not really understanding something, you may have heard of ChatGTP. I actually wrote a blog recently, and I haven't published it yet, but I will get on and do it, all about how AI can be used. And there are lots and lots of really good ways in which you can use AI. What you can't do is get it to write your assignments for you. But if you are unsure of whether what you've written meets the criteria, you can ask ChatGTP, this is my assignment brief, this is what I've written, have I answered the question accurately? And it will come back and say, yes, that was an amazing response, Julie, but you also just need to consider this. Or it might say, this doesn't sound right that you've met it, you've missed out this point and this point. And it's like having your own little teaching assistant on your shoulder. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing.
Lovely. I like the sound of that. That sounds really good. And as we've said, if you've done it once, you do not want to be writing these again. You've got a lot of work to do, so do it once, do it right. What I would suggest is that you keep your own record of what you have submitted and tick it off as you go. That is so satisfying when you start to think, actually, I've done this, I've got through that bit. I love doing that because it makes you feel so much better when you've done it. I would say that when you're learning routines, break them down into small sections, record them. You can do all sorts of things with the app that you've got as well on the TLR. So if you're out walking the dog, you could listen to some of the anatomy and physiology. You could listen to some of the business modules while you're walking along. You could listen to some of the reflexology. It's on the phone. You can watch it. You can listen to it. Break it down yourself, have little post-it notes whenever you're trying to remember things. Get somebody else to just test you on names and functions of things. Use all the resources that are on the TLR. Do those quizzes as many times as you can with the anatomy and physiology. It does stick in there, and you can start to relate what you're learning to what you're seeing with your clients and your case studies. And I think one of the biggest things is that if you are struggling, ask for help sooner rather than later. Don't wait until it's become a problem, because I think that's what a lot of people do. They think that they can't get out of it, they can't get the help that they need.
I think also to add on to the getting help is buddying up with somebody in your group and having that accountability. So agreeing, right, next week we're both going to work on this assignment, and talk about it and say, well, this is what my assignment looks like. What does yours look like? And sharing information is really important, because it's about showing that you've got the knowledge. It's not being prescriptive as to where you got it. So reading different articles and books is really valuable as well. But if you can even meet in a pub somewhere and talk about and plan out, or a coffee shop, or if you're on grandchildren duty, soft play park, and ask somebody to come along and, you know, have a coffee and just sit down and work out a plan of, well, how are we going to do this? is a little bit like when I'm trying to write some kind of blog post and I'm sitting there at a blank screen saying, I just don't know where to start. And you start typing and then you go, no, that's no good. And then you start typing. So thinking about the structure of having an introduction, information, and then an end is useful as well.
Definitely. And I think be realistic about your timescales. Set yourself a time and work within that time. Set yourself some breaks. I think it's about 20 minutes that we can concentrate and focus for before we need to get up and move away, come back to it again. But just try to do something and complete something, but be realistic about it.
It's just reminded me, actually, I listened to a really great podcast a couple of weeks ago, all about and I'm going to say Pomodoro technique, but I don't think that's right. It's a pompa something, but I will find it. But the optimum time for your brain, it takes 20 minutes to focus before you will even start to do any work. So that's quite a long time. And there's all sorts of techniques, obviously turning your phone off, turning notifications off. My constant is pinging, pinging, pinging. But when I want to sit down and do some work, my phone's out of the room, my notifications are off, my blinds are down, the door's shut, and I need to be in the zone, because if I've got things going on, even the ironing seems really exciting when I'm trying to do some work. It's like, oh, I'll just go and check on, and I'll just go, there's somebody that I'll just, every time you distract yourself from what you're doing, it takes 20 minutes to get back in the zone. And I don't think we appreciate that. Yeah.
I always have a bit of music on in the background. I find something that's quite tranquil. I shut the door, I shut myself away, and I just go, right, that's it. I'm going to work for that period of time. Doesn't work for everybody. And that's why it's so important to try to identify what is it that's stopping you from being able to do this, and trying to eliminate those barriers. But then I thought about, there are some good bits when you're studying. I absolutely love the feeling when you've handed an assignment in and it's like, oh, that's it, I've done it. I haven't got to do anything for a while. I could at least have a couple of days before I've got to start something else. And I love that feeling. And I think also it's that feeling that you're getting that one step closer to where you want to be, to what you want to do, and just keep going. You can do it. And you will get there, but you've got to find the right way of supporting yourself and giving yourself the best chance of doing this.
I think coming back to that why thing as well, maybe even think about creating a vision board of the why. What is it that you're doing it for? And everybody's got a very different why. However, almost everybody's why is to allow them to do something that they can't do at the moment. So whether it is extra finances so that they can do more, so have pictures of that. What does that more look like? Is it a new handbag that you want? Is it a holiday? Is it a car? Is it what is it? Or it might be that you need more time to spend with people that you want to spend time with, so have pictures of those people up. And the whole power of attraction, the law of attraction, the manifesting what you want, visualizing what you want is so powerful. And if you are not familiar with that whole concept, that needs to be part of your